Hi, I'm Glenn Whipp with the Los Angeles Times. When Emmy nominations came out earlier this month, Fargo received 18 nominations, including lead actors Martin Freeman, Billy Bob Thornton, supporting actress Allison Tolman, and this guy right here, Colin Hanks, who played Duluth deputy Gus Grimley.
There you go. Well done.
It's full-on alliteration there.
Double
Duluth,
D's,
yeah,
double G's, yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
And congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You know, we had Allison in here a few weeks ago.
Oh.
And it was right after the episode where Gus unfortunately shot her.
Yeah. Spoilers, by the way.
There are
spoilers. Everybody knows there are going to be spoilers.
I sort of warned everyone in the post.
Totally.
So,
I saw that.
If you haven't watched it by now, why? But big whiteout.
Mm-hmm.
Gus, you know, I told her, I said, you know, maybe Gus is one of these law enforcement types, kind of like a Barney Fife, where Andy should just have one bullet and he in his pocket and he hands it to him.
Yeah.
So I feel like now, having seen the whole series,
mm-hmm.
I owe Gus an apology, don't I?
A little bit. I mean, that's very kind of you to say. Yeah. I mean, I even while we were filming it, there was a part of me that in the back of my head, it's like, where is this going? Because this is not at all what I expected, and obviously I was rooting for Gus to be able to essentially get a win, because so much of his time is spent sort of losing every moral dilemma, every fight he has. But that ended up being not only one of the big curveballs that Noah threw, Noah Hawley, our writer, but it also ended up being a really interesting way to bring those two characters that much closer on a personal level, not just on, you know, a work-related level. I have very vivid memories of Allison texting me the night that we both got scripts. Like, have you read it yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I read it. Why would you do that to me? I said, oh, I'm sorry. It's Gus.
Well, how much, when you signed on for Fargo, how much of the story, how much of the character arc did you know for Gus?
None. I didn't know anything. When I was sent the script, it was basically, here's a script for a television series of Fargo. Before you interrupt us, it's very good, mm-hmm. And you should read it, but you should know that the character that they want you to read for is only going to be in one scene. And I instantly got kind of like worried, because when they say like, oh, you're only going to be in one scene, but they promise you're going to be in more, you know, sometimes you've
heard that before.
I've heard it before, yeah. And that's just the nature of the way that television shows are run, essentially. But you know, Noah did, I thought, a very smart thing, and in that, and it was very early on in our first discussion. He says, look, you know, a lot of times the convention is in your pilot episode you have to introduce your 6, 7, 8 main characters all within the first 10 pages. We're not doing that. We're not gonna make this by those sort of paint by number rules. So we're gonna introduce a main character 40 minutes into the pilot. And I thought that was really interesting. And just, I mean, that scene alone of Gus, you know, pulling Lauren Malvo over, I mean, it was such a good scene that in combination with this new sort of way of storytelling got me incredibly excited, just for the audition. Right. Never mind if I got the part, you know, that's totally out of my control. But that was just a fun afternoon to be able to go in and just perform that scene in the audition.
Yeah, when you say just one scene, or when you heard just one scene, then you read the scene, and it was like, oh my God, because it's a fairly long scene.
Yeah.
And preceding Gus meeting Malvo or pulling Malvo over, there's the whole thing with the daughter. Walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
Which is just so beautifully set up.
Yeah. There was so much going on in that scene. I mean, not only do you have the whole build-up, so there's this incredible tension where the audience knows who this guy is and that he's a bad guy, but they don't necessarily know who this cop is. They've just seen him talking with his daughter on a walkie. So that tension there is raised, and it created this. I mean, I've never been in a scene like it, and I sort of said jokingly, like, look, if you're going to be in one scene in a pilot, that's the scene you want to be in.
Right.
But there was all of this weight to it that the audience brought, but then there was also this weight to it just from that scene of Gus talking with Greta, you know, over the walkie-talkie. To bring that in, that was a very tangible uh, 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 thing for me to grasp onto. So I could then understand why he makes the decision that he does. And in the conversations that I had with Noah, I said, look, I just want to make sure that this isn't a guy that is unaware of his shortcomings. I want to make sure that we see this weight on his shoulders, and we see him actively trying to fix that, to amend that. And you know, even when it ges worse, and you know, he shoots Molly, these things are very hard for him to wrestle with. I wanted him to be able to be aware of his shortcomings and actively try to fix them. And that in and of itself was enough for me to say, okay, well, wherever Noah is going to take this, and I had no idea really beyond that first episode, I'll just go along with it and know that it's going to resolve, because he said very clearly, we're making a 10-hour movie. There will be a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so I just put my faith in Noah.
Yeah, because I mean, Gus really does that decision to let Malvo go. Very understandable, but yet it does really weigh on him throughout the subsequent episodes.
Yeah, and it sets the whole rest of the season in motion. You know, in a way.
And he does catch Malvo at you know, one early point, brings him in.
Yeah, I mean that was
that was kind of his shining, almost, well, I mean, one of his early shining moments.
Yeah, I mean, I there was you know, the funny thing I realized, you know, I've played police officers in a couple of other things, and I quickly realized I had to sort of unlearn all of that. I didn't want Gus to be able to have the proper stance when he's holding his weapon. He's ill-equipped. He's not really, you know, he is kind of a Barney Fife type mold, that kind of character, because he's not really in it to be a law officer. He's in it to do good for his community, and eventually we find out he did it just because the post office wasn't hiring. So this idea that he lets this guy go, and he has great shame about it, and he fesses up, and then to be able to bring, you know, to arrest the bad guy and bring him in, that's like a big deal for Gus. And then
he's just belittled for it, though.
He's belittled for it because you know, at every turn, even up to that last scene in the series, Malvo is always 2 steps ahead, and Malvo is the one that is manipulating Gus. You know, and he manipulates Gus when Gus brings him into the precinct, and you know, has this elaborate web of deceit, this sort of long con, and makes Gus look foolish. But even at the end, you know, you know, a lot of people commented that they felt that last sort of scene with Gus and Malvo was Gus's sort of big hero moment, and I didn't necessarily see it that way. I saw it much more of Malvo is accomplishing exactly what he wants. He's forcing Gus to do something that Gus does not want to do. He's forcing Gus into a corner because Gus is the, you know, the prey, and Lorne Malvo is the predator. Even, you know, Malvo's got, you know, an incredibly injured leg, and is basically just sitting there, just forcing Gus to sort of finish this thing. That's something Gus doesn't want to do, and that's something that is going to haunt Gus for the rest of his life. That's something that he's going to have to live with, and that's that final weight that's going to be placed on his shoulders. Thank goodness he is now with, you know, with Molly and Greta, and they've got a baby on the way, so he has a support system now.
And the job at the post office.
And the job at the post office, yeah. But you know, as in real life, and I think in a way, you know, playing with the sort of conventions that the Coen brothers do. You know, maybe you're lucky if you get, you know, seemingly everything that you want, but it's going to come at a big price. You know, and again, that was that's different than Barney Fife.
It is, yeah, a little bit different tone.
A little bit different tone, yeah.
Well, I spoke to Billy Bob Thornton after the finale, and his take on it was pretty similar to what you were saying. That he was saying that Malvo's job was to expose people for what they are and lead them to it. So he's working for the devil.
Mm-hmm.
He's also working for God in
Mm-hmm.
Gus's sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that even after Gus shoots him, he's not angry at Gus. He's happy. If Gus hadn't shot him, Billy Bob said, then he would have been angry.
Yes. Yes. He still is able to get Gus to do his bidding.
Yeah.
Which I think is, one of those nuances that, obviously the Coen brothers do really, really well in their films, and obviously, what we strive to do. But yes, Malvo specifically wants Gus to finish him off, because that is what Malvo sees as the only right solution here.
Mm-hmm.
Malvo doesn't want to go spend a bunch of time in prison and be stuck there. He's done.
Yeah.
So he once again he forces the other people who are always weaker in Malvo's from Malvo's perspective. Everyone else is a pawn, and he's the one that forces them to do things.
Yeah.
And that's a prime example.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I sort of feel like Gus goes in there knowing that's what he has to do.
Mm.
I think he takes it upon himself when he realizes that this isn't over until Malvo's dead. So he goes in as best as he can with that intention. But that's Malvo has already made him make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like this big dramatic, shoot me, kill me scene. All the seeds have already been planted.
Mm-hmm.
in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, the character of Gus to me was I had such a visceral reaction to some of these scenes. I mean, it's pretty rare when I'm watching a TV series and I'm literally like screaming at the TV. Like when he went into the cabin, or he's like staking out the cabin.
Yeah.
I'm screaming at the TV. What are you doing?
Don't go in there. Don't go in there.
Yeah. I mean, because clearly you're out of your class here.
Yeah. And that is, again, that's such a brave decision on Noah's part to have Gus go in there, and then we don't see him for a long chunk of time. You forget that he's there.
Yeah, there's the whole thing with Lester and Malvo, and there's all kind. Malvo goes off to the used car.
Yeah, he does that. There's all the Budge and Pepper stuff. I mean, there's a sizable chunk of that episode where Gus is just, where's Gus? We forgot about Gus. So that by the time Malvo gets back into that cabin, again, there's that tension of everything that has preceded it is sort of leading to this other moment, and so you sort of hopefully you watched with one eye open, and if you weren't screaming at the TV, maybe you were holding your breath. That was the hope.
Yeah. But even going back to that very first scene that we were talking about, I thought it was the writing and the performances did such a nice job of setting up that kind of father-daughter dynamic, father-parent, the parent-child dynamic, that you were just saying, please, do let him go. I mean,
yeah. I mean, there was again, I think obviously part of it is all in the writing, in Noah's writing, but then there's also that that sort of Fargo thing, that if you want to call it the Minnesota nice, the Midwestern charm, whatever it is, of people are not necessarily over emotive, they're not very they don't like asking people to do things. It's very introspective. It's very inward, but Gus has a way of sort of sidestepping and tiptoeing around the subject with Greta. He has a way of sort of sidestepping it when he tells his lieutenant and when he tells Molly. But you do see a change there's a scene in the final episode just prior to him discovering the cabin where he's on the phone with Molly, when he basically says, don't go in there, don't do that. And that's the only time where you really see Gus say, what he really wants. One of the only times where people in the show actually state their desire and what they want. And even then, it's still not this overly dramatic thing. It's just this tinge of, I know it's not fair what I'm asking of you, but I have to ask you to do it because I can't take my daughter to another funeral, and obviously sometimes the more succinct you are and the more sort of calm you are about it, that sort of gets that point across. And the show is peppered with those kinds of moments of that sort of reserved thing. I mean, one of the things that Noah always liked to say is, why ask a question in 3 words when you can use 20? And a lot of characters do that, and Gus is no exception to it.
I mentioned we had Allison in a few weeks back.
You had the pleasure of having
We had
Allison.
the pleasure,
Yes.
true pleasure. And so I contacted her via Twitter and mentioned that you were coming in today. And I said, well, what should I ask Colin? Her reply was, ask him about watching the season finale of True Detective. And then she said, "Mwah."
I was, so I was in, obviously I'm a huge fan of that program. I thought it was absolutely spectacular. And I was in Calgary. I had traveled back and forth quite a bit, so I watched a majority of the show here at home. But in Calgary, I didn't have HBO in the place that I lived. So I asked strangers on Twitter if they had a +1 in their living room so I could watch the show.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of different offers, and I sort of vetted them all. How
do you vet a stranger?
Well, you
on
look
Twitter?
you look at their profile. Maybe they link to stuff, something that they do, and you look at photos, and hopefully they look like nice enough people. And I found
they are Canadian.
They're
so,
Canadian. Well,
yeah,
that in and of itself
right.
is And I found a couple, Sarah and Josiah. They played in a band together. She's made documentaries, and he writes for the local weekly music magazine. I said, "Oh, these seem like my kind of people."
Sarah and Josiah, it sounds like sort of an Old Testament.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things going in. I was like, okay, this could either go really, really well, or this is, regardless, it's going to be a great story.
Okay.
So I said, okay, well, here's the first step. What's your address? Because I'm going to do this. And they gave me their address. They said, do you need a ride? I said, no, I'll come to you. And I went to their house. They were very kind. They offered me Canadian, chips and candies and a microbrew, and we sat and sort of talked and got to know each other a little bit. And then we watched the show, and then we chatted afterwards about the show and about what I was doing in Calgary. And it ended up being a really fun evening. So yeah, come that Monday morning, I said, you won't believe what I did last night. Sort of told everyone about it, and they all properly said, that's insane, and you should never do that again. Yeah.
But now you have some friends in Calgary. Sarah and Josiah.
I do. I would go. If I'm ever in Calgary again, I will go straight to them and say, what's up? Let me buy you a beer.
It sounds like working with Allison, I mean, just a true pleasure. And you guys became friends quickly and sort of remained friends.
Yeah, she is. She's not only a genuine person, but she's the genuine article, in my opinion. They obviously took a big leap with their decision making in terms of wanting to cast someone that wasn't known, that hadn't been in a lot of things, but was unique and different and brought something to Molly. And Allison fit that mold perfectly. Ironically, when we first met, I found out that she was an understudy of a production of 33 Variations, which I had done in New York. So we already had like this, by Kevin Bacon proxy almost. We both worked on a show together, even though it wasn't the same show. But as soon as I met her, she was very easygoing, and we shot the first 2 episodes, I think in November, and then we took a big break off. But Gus and Molly didn't have a scene until the 3rd episode. So I had actually spent a lot of time like going out with her and a bunch of other people for dinners and stuff like that. So I had actually spent quite a bit of time together, and I really liked her as a person. I thought she was great, but there was this thing of, well, everyone else has been working with her. I haven't. I think we're going to be working together a lot. I hope everybody's right and that she's really great. And within the first take of our first scene together. I said, she's perfect, she's great, this is going to be easy, this isn't going to be a scenario in which someone doesn't know what they're doing or is timid or shy. She fit right in and didn't flinch for a second, and was incredibly good.
Yeah. Yeah.
It made all the right choices, and really obviously made Molly a lot of people's favorite. So
Yeah.
again, a bold stroke of luck for
Right.
all
You
of
didn't
us.
have a scene together until the third episode, but
Yeah.
then obviously that relationship almost became like the key relationship, or certainly one of the
Well,
core
one side of the
relations.
coins,
Yeah.
the good side of the coin,
Right.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And luckily, we got along so well that sort of, it made the work that all that much easier.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of instant, that sense of that they were instantly at ease with each other, I thought was, that only comes because you actually genuinely like the person that you're working with. You can fake it for a little while.
Yeah. But the fans certainly
they latched on. They latched on more than I thought, and they latched on to the show more than I thought too.
Mm-hmm.
You spend time away from your family, and you work so hard on something, and you think it's good. And maybe it's good, but you're never sure if people are gonna see it, if people are gonna connect with it in some way, that it'll somehow resonate with an audience. And this is one of those rare scenarios where that really sort of hit on all the different cylinders, I guess, if you want to say. It all came together in a way that was really surprising.
Yeah, because I mean, this really was a career changer for you.
Yeah,
I would say. I mean, I don't want to like oversell it, but
well, I mean, I don't know, career changer in terms of who knows what the future, who knows what the future is, but in terms of
satisfying role.
Yes.
Is this it? Is this like the best, as good as it gets?
Well, it's funny, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. There were parts of Gus that I found to be incredibly frustrating. The fact that he, hardly ever gets a win. The fact that he is a pushover type character. The fact that, he has this weight, but he never really stands up for himself. Those were things that I found incredibly frustrating. Mm-hmm. And considering, I've sort of been playing, sort of similar versions of nice guy type characters, there was part of me that was like, man, I really am exhausted. I'm kind of explored every facet of that kind of character. But with Gus, it was different because he was aware of his shortcomings. He was actively trying to fix them. And so I just kept sort of working on that. But, the fulfillment, I think, is it's not the fulfillment that you think it's going to be. It's not, you're not acting out the scenes going, this is everything I've ever wanted. You're still frustrated. You're still trying to make it better. You're still trying to wrap your head around something. You're still trying to find another way to get to a point, or mm-hmm. you're trying to buck this sort of cliche. You're still almost angrily trying to make it a well-rounded character. And so even though this by far is the most watched, the best attempted at a TV show or anything like this that I've done, it's still, there's at no point am I patting myself on the back saying like, oh, I finally have done it, and the irony is the show's going on for a second season, but you only get one season, so it's not like there's this sense of like relief of like, oh, I finally I'm on a critically acclaimed show that's going to be on for a long time. Nope, I got my one little shot, and that's it. But that's what made it so good. So.
But outside of Sarah and Josiah, I mean, you don't really want to go back to Calgary for an extended period.
I love Calgary. I would go back to Calgary. I don't have anything bad to say against Calgary. Just the weather.
I wasn't.
The weather.
It's time away from your family. Is what I meant.
No.
But I mean, you say you're not coming back for season 2. Who's to say season 3 might not bring back?
Don't know. Yeah, I mean, we'll wait and see.
If the planets align.
Who knows? It all depends on what Noah comes up with. But I had a nice phone call with Noah the day that they made the announcements, and I said, look, you know, I sort of knew that this was coming. I've made my peace with it, and that bold decision making is again what made the first season what it is, and so, you know, it's that double-edged sword.
Yeah.
But I'd much rather have that, you know, at least I got that first season.
Well, he seems, I mean, when they made that announcement, he seemed kind of broken up that he had to, you know, move forward. And I mean, he was making that decision for artistic reasons, but he seemed genuinely sort of apologetic and sort of a little sad that you guys were.
Yeah, and I think that has a large, you know, that's largely due in part the way that Molly and Gus as well resonated with people. They really, I don't want to say they fell in love with the characters, but they really rooted for those characters and really, you know, were champions of Gus and Molly, and then, you know, Gus and Molly getting together.
The kids gave him a ship name. Golly.
Yeah, Golly, yes,
Yeah.
which I thought was.
You have daughters, right?
Yes, I
As they
have 2
grow
daughters.
older, you'll get into this whole. Well, probably there'll be a whole new thing.
We
by then, but
we didn't realize what the whole ship thing was.
I have a 14-year-old. So
Okay,
yeah,
so you know.
she ships everything.
We didn't quite realize that was. Alice and I we were like, oh ship, what is that? Oh, okay, is that what the kids are doing now? That's what they call it?
Combining the names, and what a cute name, and so perfect for those 2 characters.
Golly.
Right? Golly.
Golly.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Colin, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
And for more of these interviews and television coverage, please go to latimes.com. Thank you.